Welcome to TriTech University. My name is Bill Steppen, and today we're going to dive into the nuances of the different ways in which you can receive new inventory in AIM v12. This is going to be kind of a pairing, if you will, to the processes we covered a couple of months ago, covering all the different ways in which you can receive used inventory, because they are pretty particular. And that kind of dawned on me. We really didn't talk about the different ways in which you can receive new inventory. Even though maybe from my perspective, of course, I've been doing this for 20 some years, maybe it seems obvious, but it occurred to me that maybe it's not. So why don't we take a look at a couple of different ways in which we can actually receive new products and discuss in which ways they differ and which ways you might want to use depending on the circumstances. As always, let's go ahead and cover a few house rules here. So if this is your first live stream broadcast, welcome. We're happy to have you. Over to the right, there is a chat tab. On the bottom of that chat tab, there is a nickname button. Feel free to click on that, and that will let you punch in your name, and then from there you can ask me questions. Definitely say hi so I know that you're here and that you are able to ask questions. And by all means, if you have a question, definitely punch it in there. And if you happen to actually be able to give a response of your own, if there's multiple people here, feel free to chat. That's the whole idea of these live stream sessions, is to be able to come together as an entire AIM community and discuss not only how the software operates, but in the honestly different ways in which it can be implemented, even ways in which we here at TriTech have not really considered. So with that being said, let me go ahead and, as always, we will switch over to my broadcast screen here, my test database. So hopefully this is nice and big for everyone to see. So when it comes to new inventory, there's 4 different ways, if you want to think of it, that you can receive new inventory. We're going to discuss all 4 of them and what happens in the background as far as things like bookkeeping is concerned and the ledger and all of that. And then, of course, like I said, the differences and why you might use one over another. Now, when you're first getting started and putting in inventory from scratch, you are likely creating that inventory using the Add Inventory screen. And when you're putting that in, you are technically editing your inventory. So when you're putting that in, if you are doing a brand new item from scratch, you're probably coming in here to add inventory and you're filling out all the details. Let's just do a quick one here. I'm just going to put in some stuff here. It doesn't necessarily need to be anything specific. Let's put in a cost of 2. Let's maybe sell it for 4, and we'll proceed with that. And in the case of anything accessories like this item is, when you come over to this Locations tab, this is editing your inventory. Now, this is one of the 4 ways in which you would do this. Typically, you would only use this function in the event that you are putting in something that you already have stock of. What do I mean by that? It means that you are not needing to mark it as received for the purposes of processing it through a payables transaction like an AP invoice or anything like that. So let's say if we go ahead and put in, let's say 2 of these, and we'll save that, and then we'll save that brand new record overall. When we go and take a look at the ledger, I'm just going to go into a ledger report here, and we'll do list ledger by reference of today through today, and we'll just display this on screen. And I'll bring the report over here so we can see that this went ahead and put that $4 of cost. Remember, I put them in as a cost of $2 each, and I had told the system that I had 2 in stock. So that put $4 worth of value into the appropriate inventory asset account, and then it offset that with a 201.98 inventory received pending invoice. So basically that's the idea. Now this would be actually very similar in the case of when you are receiving inventory. So if we go into the receive inventory function, it's kind of more of the same. I'm going to receive some RT14 just to have a different cost value here. Let's go ahead and say that we're receiving one of those, and I see that they're also at a cost of $2. So let's make them be $2.10 just to differentiate it a little bit. And we'll go ahead and we'll save that. And it's wanting to try and print a barcode, but I don't have a barcode printer hooked up, so it's just letting me know that that's not going to happen. So likewise, you would use receive inventory now going forward after you've initially put the item in, and now you are saying that you are getting more of that. And likewise, if we go in and take a look at the ledger activity to that, let's go back once again to list ledger by reference, and we'll just print this to the screen as well. And we can see that this did something similar. It went ahead and put the cost value into the appropriate ledger account for inventory on hand, and once again into the 201-98 for inventory received pending invoice. Now, I guess that's a little bit of a misnomer. I mentioned that technically when you're first putting it in, you're adding that inventory and technically editing it. This is a little bit different from when you are actively editing it. So in the event that you need to make an edit of it, so let's say you know the quantity is off and you just need to go in and make an adjustment, we can go into change inventory. And when we go into change inventory, I'll just pull up that RT14 once again, and that will, I guess I need to hit enter. There we go. Getting back into the swing of things, getting the rust out of my gears from being off for a little bit here. So anyway, let's go to the locations tab, and let's say, actually there's not 64 of these in stock, there's only 61. So we can make that adjustment here and hit save. And when we do so, and once again, let's look at the ledger report here. I need to go to the right report here. Here we go. Today through today. And we'll print this to the screen. So now you're going to notice something slightly different. So you'll notice when I edit it using change inventory, it's going to once again make an adjustment to the inventory asset account, but the offset is no longer this pending invoice account. It's now hitting an account called 627.1 inventory shrinkage by default. I want to show you where all of this ledger activity is coming from. So if we go ahead and take a look at some of the system categories here in AIM. Now, if you're not using the bookkeeping part of the system, this is completely moot for you. But for those of you who are interested in finding out how this works, every time you receive inventory using receive inventory by purchase order, the add inventory screen, etc., it is using this very first system category, 1601, inventory cost received. And as we can see here, it says that as inventory is received through either the purchase order module or directly through inventory, the ledger postings will be a debit to the proper inventory asset account, and a credit will be posted to the inventory received clearing account. And if we take a look right here, that is the 120-0, which we can see the 0 is being replaced with the inventory category. If we just bring up the inventory categories for reference, we can see that when I received something to the apparel category, it is using 15, and you might remember that that was 120-15 for apparel. When I make the adjustments to the band accessories like we did, then that's putting in a 2 for the 120-2 in that case. Either way, they are being offset by this 201.98 inventory received pending invoice, which is a liability account, so that when you receive inventory and you still need to pay for it, that's basically where it goes, so that you can put it through a proper accounts payable process. Even if technically you paid for it up front with cash on delivery, there's a process for posting it through AP and ledger for the purposes of tracking all of that. So I'm not going to get too deep into the accounting and ledger and bookkeeping side today. That'll be probably saved for another broadcast down the road. But I just wanted you to be cognizant of where this activity is coming from. So we technically covered kind of two processes, the receive inventory as well as add and edit inventory. Now, Let's say that you have invested in the purchase order module and you have put out a purchase order to a vendor or vendors, and they have now shipped you some product. Same idea, except you're no longer going into receive inventory to receive those items individually. With the benefit of the PO module, you can go and track that through what's called a purchase order, and you can output and create a purchase order. I've already done so for the purposes of expediting this process, and that would be going straight to receive purchase orders. When I go to receive purchase orders, I would find the purchase order in which I'm receiving, in this case this purchase order 1003 to Acme Products. From there I can go to the second tab, the items on purchase order tab, and I can quote unquote scan the barcode or item number, and when I do that it will receive the quantity here, and as we can see it's updated that received quantity by 1. I'm going to go ahead and point out that over here the default is it will receive to 1 each time you scan or basically otherwise key in an item. That's the whole idea of receiving inventory on a purchase order, is you might be unboxing it and then scanning it so that you are verifying that you got exactly what you ordered as you pull them out of the shipping cargo. So that way, if there is a discrepancy between the quantity ordered and the quantity received, you know exactly what the differences are, and you didn't just eyeball it and assume everything is there, and then find out later on that it actually wasn't. So that's the whole idea here. Let's just go ahead and I'm going to cheat and actually say that all items are as received. Once again, it's trying to print barcodes, so I'm just going to go ahead and click through all of those messages because it's trying to print 19 more. So now with that done, when we hit save, once again it will have made the appropriate ledger activity here. If we go once again to the list ledger by reference, we'll just do again today through today and print to screen. We're now going to see that it made the necessary entries here. Again, very similar to adding from the first time and using receive inventory. And that's basically how you're doing that in there. So once again, it's very similar ledger-wise. Now, on the history of these items, if we go and take a look at an inventory history record, let's go to inventory history, and let's bring this over here and look up RT14. You're not going to see anything specifically here right off the top. I will talk about this line here in just a moment. But anytime you use receive inventory or receive inventory by purchase order, it will make entries into this receive history function specifically here. We can see that it went ahead and posted the 1 that I received through receive inventory, as well as posted the 20 that I received through receive inventory by purchase order or receive purchase order. Note that the second line here has the PO number attached to it. There is a way that you can attach purchase order numbers when just receiving inventory if you have not actually invested in the PO module, but you have actually submitted a PO to your company, to your vendor when doing so. If you have a PO that you want to attach to it, you can fill that in right here. That will then show up in the history here. Likewise, if there is an AP invoice associated with it, once you've keyed it through AP invoice and reconciled it, that will show up here. There is also a way when putting it in through add change or receive inventory, you can do the same thing here. You can put in the AP invoice number there, and I kind of glossed over it, but if we go back and take a look at, let's say, PO view purchase order, I don't know if I'll be able to do that directly here, but let's just go ahead and look at the items here. There's a right-click option. It's not going to show up here in view, but in the receive function there is an option to add an invoice number at the time of receiving the PO. Again, in the event that you are not using the accounts payable module, but you still want to have that invoice here for the purposes of your history. So hopefully that's all making sense. Once again, let me know over in the chat area if there are any questions. But the last function that I want to talk about today is transferring inventory. Now, transferring inventory is done in those situations where you've actually transferred something out of inventory. Typically, you would not want to be going in and just editing that inventory because there's not much of a paper trail for the purposes of an inventory audit. That actually reminds me, I did want to talk a little bit about that inventory history here. If we go in and look at RT14, you might notice that up here it's showing, actually no, I'm going to talk about this in just a second here. Let me go and look at, what was that, 2, 3, 4, 5? Is that the item that I had just created? Yeah, the men's bottoms here. If we take a look here, notice how there is no receiving history here. And that is because when we put it into inventory and we simply put in the quantity there, the starting quantity, that's not technically considered a receiving. So it's not going to show up here. It's basically more of like a starting quantity, if you will, of something you already had on hand when you got started with that SKU. So just kind of keep that in mind, that it's typically not considered officially received inventory when you just put it in through that inventory edit. Or that inventory add. Likewise, when you use the inventory edit function to just make an adjustment directly, there's not going to be a receive history there either. Instead, it will make an entry to that screen, if you will. Let me bring that back up, the inventory history here. So when you use the function to just make an adjustment using the edit inventory screen, if you have a specific system variable set up, it will make an entry here as a transfer in or out. And it will use the type. I'm going to talk about transfers here in just a second, but I just want to kind of use this as a precursor leading up to that. But it will not make an adjustment in receiving or anything like that. Instead, it will make an adjustment depending on how you're receiving it. If you're editing it up, it will show basically a negative quantity here, if you will. And if you're transferring it or editing it down, it will show a positive quantity here as far as transfer out, if you will. So just kind of keep that in mind. As far as which type it will use, and again, this will hopefully make more sense here in just a second. Devin, I see your question coming up. I'm just going to finish my train of thought here before I lose it. So when it comes to editing the inventory records, it's actually using a special system variable called physical transfer. We can see here, this is typically used for the purposes of a physical inventory audit and account. But if you would like something to show up in the actual screen of the history there, in other words, when we wanted to make a transfer out record for each quantity adjustment, you'll put in a system category here referencing the transfer reason that you wanted to use. Now, it will only use the transfer reason. It's still going to use a different system category for the ledger side of the equation. So, as you might recall, when we made that transfer, or technically when we made that edit, let me bring that report back up one more time here, the list ledger by reference. When we edited that quantity down of the RT14 here, we can see that it made an entry here to reduce or deduct the value of the items from 120-2, and then it used 627-1, the inventory shrinkage, to do a transfer out of that, if you will. What is that system category, and what is that what are the two system categories in question in this case? Well, if we go back and take a look at the system categories, remember it was pointing to, if I can get all these windows out of the way, 1631. Well, if we go and look at 1631, that is a lost or stolen. So remember when I transferred that out, that is what it did there, is it made an entry there to the inventory history. I might still have that open. Nope, there we go. Okay. So see here, it's showing that transfer out of 3. That's how it's getting the record there of the adjustment. And then as far as the ledger itself, even though technically it's the same ledger here, 120-0 for the credit and 627 for the debit, it's actually not using that specific ledger for the purposes of the edit. Instead, it is looking at 1650, just like that system variable mentioned, and that is an inventory quantity change. Notice how it's actually the same ledger numbers, but anytime you make an actual edit of the quantities using either the change inventory program or using the physical inventory process, it is looking specifically at this system category to know what the ledger should be as far as those entries. Now, let me take a look at what Devin's question is here before I get into the kind of the final function here of transferring. Devin asks, is there any benefit to using receive inventory versus receive PO or vice versa, aside from the PO number and the AP invoice number? Great question, Devin. So basically, the main idea of using the purchase order module is the added benefit of tracking a purchase order start to finish. I talked a little bit about this in my purchase order primer broadcast or video, if you will, but basically with a PO, you can key in exactly what you want to order, who you're ordering it from as far as the vendors, who you're ordering it for. Are you ordering this for store stock? Are you ordering this for special orders for customers, or is it a combination of those two? And then when you go to actually receive it, you'll have that list in front of you of receiving, of exactly what you can be expecting to pull out and unbox when you're receiving it, versus when you just go to receive inventory, there's nothing here that indicates, oh, you should be expecting this, this, and this. It's simply expecting you to scan the barcode, put in the quantity or the serial, take it at face value, and you really don't have a way at this point to verify, oh, I only received 4 when I ordered 6, or I actually received 11 when I ordered 8. If there's any discrepancy between that, the PO process will bring that right to the forefront. It's going to come up with an alert and say, hey, there's a discrepancy between what you ordered versus what you received. What is the reason for that? And then there's a process where you can key in what are called problem codes for tracking all of that. If you have not yet done so, Devin, I know you're an avid attendee of all of my broadcasts, but I did do one on purchase orders a long time ago. I'm pretty sure it's available in the video portal, if you will. But if not, definitely I'll make that a priority to be doing here one in the upcoming months. So, hopefully that makes sense, Devin. Let me know. Otherwise, let's talk about transfers. So, to have proper history of your inventory, if there is ever a situation where you find that you are lacking inventory and you want to reduce that, of course, you could do a full-scale physical inventory, but if it's just a one-off, my recommendation is to use transfer inventory out. That's when you are getting rid of that quantity. But now, and just so that we can see this full scale here for the purposes of today's broadcast, when you do a transfer inventory out, you'll choose any one of the reasons that AIM has. These are customizable. These are referencing those 1630 system categories. So, for example, the lost or stolen, that was system category 1631, just for your purposes here. But this gives you all the other options as well. So, technically, let's say that it got damaged. You could select that, and that would have its own transfer inventory record, as well as potentially its own unique ledger activity associated with that. But let's say, for example, you don't know where they are, so you're going to transfer them out as lost or stolen. So we can then go ahead and do, let's say, a quantity of 3. Let's mix it up. Let's do RT71s this time, some fingerboard oil. And we'll go ahead and transfer those out. Now, notice here there's a pending flag, and it's not checked by default. If we mark something as shipped back to vendor, it is. Now, you can adjust that not willy-nilly, but as needed, and that's important for the next function here. I'm actually going to transfer these items out as pending, and I'm going to do a second one, a second transfer. using a different method. So where am I at? There we go. Inventory transfer options and transfer inventory out. This one I'm going to do as lost or stolen. And let's do 5 RT10s, some Mighty Fresh here. So we'll go ahead and transfer those out. And of course, that's creating just some records of receipts of that happening. Likewise, if we go back and look at the inventory history for RT, not 14, that's muscle memory there. RT10, we can see that there's the 5 that we transferred out as lost or stolen. If we do the RT71s, there's the ship back to vendor. But now let's say that you either get that product back, because you had sent it to the vendor for the purposes of warranty work or something like that, or you found some of them. We can transfer those back in. And transferring back in basically does the opposite ledger entries of a transfer inventory out. It's not going to expect you to put it through another accounts payable process or have to have a PO or anything like that. And it also won't throw off your receiving history because technically you would already receive this at some point in the past. You're not re-receiving it. You're transferring it back in. When you go to transfer inventory in, and you'll notice here it's saying list pending transfers only by default. If we hit refresh on this, we should be seeing, and I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it, but we should be seeing those items that we just transferred out. Let's maybe just put that out one day. Interesting. So we should be seeing those items that we transferred out. But let's go ahead and list everything. There we go. Yeah, not sure why the other one isn't showing up here. That's something I'll be taking a look at. But there's the ship back to vendor that I did. I know I had marked it as pending. And then there's the other items that I did, the lost or stolen. So let's go ahead and say that the vendor shipped those back. We can select this one, and it will bring up the transfer inventory in screen here. We can see that we had originally transferred 3 out. We're going to go ahead and say that we got all 3 back. In the event that you transferred out a serialized item, the SKU here will actually be the serial number, and what you can do is there will be an option where you can right-click and change that serial number, because maybe when you shipped one product back, they shipped you a replacement instead of the original item. So there will be a way to actually adjust the serial number here. And Devin, I know this is important for you, being a firearms store. In the event that they ship you back a different firearm, you're going to need to denote that in your A&D book. So transferring it out will have made an A&D book entry as being transferred back to the vendor, and when you transfer it back in, it will show either the same serial number or a new serial number as coming back into your gun book. We can go ahead and save that. Likewise, it would print a receipt, but if we go ahead and take a look one more time at the ledger here of list ledger by reference, and we will just show this activity here one more time. We can see here, if I zoom in, there's the items being returned to the vendor, and then likewise, actually it's showing you that twice. Here was the transfer out, the timestamp there at 1:25, and then the opposite entries 3 minutes later at 1:28 when I transferred them back in. Devin is saying pending isn't showing because I added the line before I clicked the pending flag. That is very astute of you, Devin. I honestly didn't realize that made a difference in the work order there. So good to know. And likewise, this is exactly why we do these broadcasts, so we can share these tidbits with each other. So thank you so much, Devin. Appreciate that. And I appreciate your coming and being a faithful follower of these broadcasts. So that takes us right up to the end of our session here. And like I said, when it comes to tracking your inventory, of course, AIM being a very powerful utility for the purposes of inventory control, it's best to try and use the tools in which they were kind of envisioned. So receive inventory, receive purchase order. If you're bringing product brand new in from scratch and they've never been in other words, they're brand new. They're not used. In other words, they're not being bought from a customer. They're not coming in on consignment. They're not traded in. I did other broadcasts on that. That's all in the recent live streams playlist, so you can go check that out. And then the transfer options and the edit options. We can see why and when those are being used and why they might be useful for you. As far as upcoming broadcasts, we have one more this month scheduled. That's going to be Tuesday, the 27th, and that's going to be a broadcast covering word templates. Now, I've done a word template video and broadcast in the past. This is going to be a redoing of that just to kind of bring it up to speed. And likewise, I'll probably be doing very similar topics in October and November. But if you have a specific topic that you would like me to cover, up at the top you'll see a poll option on this website. Check it out and go in, and that's where you can put in any comments or excuse me, any topics that you would like to see me cover in one of these broadcasts. I definitely put those at the head of the priority over rehashing old topics that are just getting a facelift and a tightening. So let me know what you'd like to see happen here at TriTech University. And if nothing else, I will see you in 2 weeks to go over word templates. And if there's anything else we can do for you in the meantime, definitely reach out to us on our support lines, our sales lines. You can email me at training@tritechretail.com. Anything we can do to help you out. That's why we're here, to help you guys succeed. So thanks so much for attending today or for viewing the recording, if that is what you are doing. And we will see you when we see you. Take care and have a great one.